I'm Tabitha, and today we're talking statistics. You may have noticed that I haven't been doing monthly statistic videos in 2020. Those relate to my reading and writing and my goals and how I'm doing and just overall progress. In 2019, I did them every month. In 2020, you've seen monthly wrap-up videos go up which have some statistics, and if you're following my blog, tabithashipleybooks.com, then you've seen even more statistics go up every month, but it's nowhere near the level of analysis that I like to do because I love this kind of stuff. So I decided in 2020 I'm just going to do 4 videos this year, one every quarter, and the second quarter is officially over. So it's time to dig into all the statistics related to my reading and writing, so stick around because you're about to learn a lot about how productive my second quarter was. So first up, I'm going to look at all things writing. My focus in 2020 has, of course, been my year-long goals, but my irrational perfectionist self cannot resist tracking daily word count anyway. So let's see how we did for second quarter, yes? For reference, all 3 of these months you're seeing right now were actually higher than February from quarter 1. So even though May kind of looks bad in comparison to the other 2 months in this quarter, it's actually not my worst month of 2020. So that's something, I guess. June and April both would have met my old daily word count goals back in 2019. April was the highest month so far in 2020 altogether, so I'm happy with those numbers. They're pretty amazing. For total, I wrote 104,761 words in second quarter. Compare that to first quarter when I wrote under 94,000, and you can see why I'm pretty pleased with this. This was a good quarter for writing. That chart you just saw includes all the words I might write on all of my different projects. So that would include any scripts that I have to do for these videos ahead of time. It would include blog posts, actual drafts of books, or even words or outlines put into my idea journal in preparation for a book. Some of you have also heard me talk in the past about how when I'm starting a new work in progress, I'll often do scenes or shorts that are never going to appear in any book, that just help me understand the characters in the world. That all counts as idea journal, and they're all words that I count. Let's take a deeper look at all those different sources and how those word counts broke down. On this graph you're looking at, April is blue, May is red, and June is yellow. And of course, all my different projects are down the side there. All 3 months saw a large amount of words added to my idea journal. As you probably know, this is because I was still actively trying to pick a work in progress to focus on. I should mention that I always write in my idea journal, even if I'm also working on something active. You'll see that I'm thinking in third quarter because I'll have an active, but you'll still see me working on idea journal. But this particular quarter, they were really high in the idea journal because I didn't have an active work in progress for a lot of it. In April, blue, my second biggest project besides the idea journal was Kingdom of Fron. That would be because I was doing the major rewrite to Fron Book 4. I was adding in some much needed side storylines. That project wrapped up in May, which is why you see no Kingdom of Fron words in June. You may notice I had no magical YA words in April. That's because I didn't start the final read through of that until I'd finished with the Fron edit, so that started in May and really kicked up in June. I do want to point out, though, that there's significantly less words added to the magical YA than the Kingdom of Fron, even though they were both edit rewrites. That's because the magical YA was a final read-through before going to betas. I've already done my major rewrites. I didn't add a lot of words to that one, but I did edit a lot of chapters. The Ghostly YA was officially chosen as the new work in progress in June, so you'll see that kick in on the chart with some words in June. And hopefully, third quarter will really show some Ghostly YA words. While playing around with the graphs that I wanted to use for this video, I stumbled upon this really cool graph, which showed which projects had words added for both quarters, so for the first 6 months of 2020. I like this one because really the longer the bar in this one, regardless of color, the more words it had added in 2020. So as you can see, my idea journal tops this out as having the most words by far. I think that's a direct result of the fact that I write in my idea journal literally every day. I put scenes, poems, character ideas, sketches, outlines, all kinds of stuff, but I really do write in this every day. So that's the reason why you're seeing this. And you might notice I think that's the only bar that has all 6 colors, meaning I wrote in it every month. The book reviews. That shocked me a little. I guess I didn't realize how much time and words I put into carefully crafting those reviews that I post on Goodreads and on Amazon. Those then, of course, become the scripts for the book review videos that I do right here on this channel. I guess I just never really noticed. I put a lot of words and time into those. That could be because I also have read a lot in this 6 months. Either way, that bar's length really kind of shocked me. Frond is the next highest bar on this graph, and that's because there's 2 Frond projects represented in the first half of 2020. In first quarter, I was, of course, drafting the zero draft of Frond Book 5, but you just heard me say in second quarter, I was doing a major rewrite to Frond Book 4. So that really long bar is 2 different books in that same series. So that's why it's so long. Since blog posts come up next, I will point out that I do not count idea journal posts twice. So if I write something in my idea journal that later I edit and put on the blog, it only counts as the idea journal. I don't double count those words. So it's worth mentioning. My perfectionist self won't let myself count those twice. I count it once and not the other one. Anyway, moving on. Let's switch gears just a little bit and look at editing. You already know that editing is one of the things I'm focused on in 2020 because you've seen my year-long goals. I have a lot of manuscripts that I focused on writing in 2019 that needed to be edited this year. So how has progress been for second quarter? Let's look. May might look bad on this chart, but it's worth mentioning that it was actually more chapters than 2 out of 3 of the months from first quarter. Editing really made some progress in second quarter, and that was obvious to me when I compared those 2 graphs. April was the highest by just a little, pulling with June only right behind it. Remember, this is because Frond Book 4 was edited in April, but the Magical YA was heavily edited in June. For reference, Frond Book 4 has 60 chapters, which means I must have made a pass through this one twice to pull this many chapters edited. Magical YA has 79 chapters. None of those received a second pass, which is why June is sitting at pretty darn close to 79 chapters. All that was 1 read through, and that's it. Did that make sense? Anyway, it made sense to me. When you add these all up, I actually edited a total of 165 chapters in second quarter. Compare that to the 73 chapters I edited in first quarter, and you can see why I'm shocked and yet also happy. The last of the 3 big categories I focus on around here is, of course, reading. Let's take a look at how I'm doing on reading. A lot of my monthly reading statistics, like genre and star rating, actually pop up on my blog posts every time I post a review video right here on the channel. So today we're going to be looking at other statistics, stuff that you wouldn't find in the blog. So for first up, let's look at the total pages I read in the second quarter of 2020. And that looks like this. This continues to make it look like I'm pretty well spread out every month. They're not big jumps. One month doesn't stand out a lot from the other. Statistically, these differences are pretty irrelevant. They're very close together, nice and clumped. That's a good sign that I'm staying consistent every month. So I decided to look at the whole year so far, all 6 months, and see if that still holds true. So that's this graph. You can see that apparently I have been pretty consistent for most of 2020. March was the lowest and January was the highest, but those 2 are really only about 1,000 pages apart. When you're talking about 5,000 words in a month, 1,000 isn't really that big of a deal. If you combine all of these total, I read 11,637 words in second quarter. That's pretty good, but it does still come in just a little below first quarter. What about where I get my books from? I hear that question a lot. In fact, I would say that's the most common question I get asked when people find out I do book reviews on this channel. They want to know where I get my books. So let's break that down for second quarter. On this graph, you'll notice April is blue, May is red, and June is yellow. Reminder, this is only the statistics for books that I actually read in second quarter. I have more giveaway wins, for example, that I won in second quarter, but since I haven't read them yet, they don't appear on this graph. I will make sure I include those when I actually read them. Anyway, library continues to be my main source, despite the fact that the library is currently closed. In second quarter, I would say I borrowed these as either ebooks or audiobooks from my library's digital service. If your library has a digital service, oh my gosh, take advantage of that because it is a great way to score some free books. Second up this time around is books that I purchased outright. I think in my 2020 quarter one wrap up, I tried to say that I don't buy a lot of books, and then this proved me wrong, I guess. I buy books all the time. Some of the books that I actually bought are still sitting on the shelf, so this is just ones that I actually read this quarter, and I think it was like 8 that I bought myself, that we bought outright, and then I read them this quarter. Trust me, I bought a lot more than that. Some of them are just going to be read later. Anyway, I continue to bring in most of my books for free by being a reviewer. If you want more information about how to be a reviewer, I'll make sure I link my old video on tips for reviewing, because if I couldn't count on those free ones, this would be an incredibly expensive endeavor. Over on my blog, one of the things that I do make sure to analyze every time I read 5 books is the genre and star rating. But I like to see if those two have any correlation or relationship, so I look at them together. On this graph, across the bottom, you'll notice I have the star ratings, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. The genres are each a different color. You'll notice that there is no 1-star rating on this graph. That's because in second quarter, I had 0 books that earned a 1-star rating, which I'm actually pretty proud of. That basically means all the books that I read this quarter would appeal to the right reader, even if I found them problematic. It looks like my 2-star books were dominated by that red color, which will surprise no one to find is romance. You all know that I have a problem with some romance tropes, and I tend to find them problematic. It's just a personal bias, and we all know that. I noticed my 5-star books, however, were dominated by my most common genres this time around. So that's fantasy, which was green, and mystery thriller, which is that pretty blue aqua kind of color. I guess if I read a lot of a genre, I'm bound to find some I love, right? That's how that works. Next up, I like to compare indie and traditional books that I read with their star ratings. Now, the reason I like to do this is because it's a misconception out there in the world, especially by people who don't read a lot of independently published books, that books that are independently published are inherently lower quality. So I like to make sure that I'm honest with all my reviews, no matter whether the books are indie or traditional, and then I like to compare them when we get to the quarterly statistics to see if that's really true. So let's take a look at those comparisons on a graph. On this graph, blue bars represent independently published books, where red bars represent traditionally published books. Traditional looks higher in 3- and 4-star ratings here, but I want to mention this is raw count of books. I did actually read more traditional books, so I think that might be a correlation you're seeing simply because I read more. I'd have to calculate it with percentages to be sure though, so I guess I can't really make that claim. But what I do find interesting here is that 5-star books, if you look only at the 5-star category, despite the fact that I read more traditionally published books, more indie books actually earned the 5-star rating this time around. That's awesome, because basically that means even when I'm being completely unbiased and I'm really judging books based on what I'm given, you would be missing out on these if you were not reading indie, and that's crazy. Sometimes I think the reason why I love statistics so much is because even when it feels like you may not have made progress or may not have done all the things you wanted to make, because you can still see the to-do list being miles long, something like this really shows you what you did accomplish. So you can see these numbers look pretty decent when compared next to each other. April was an amazing month, June was pretty good, and May honestly wasn't bad. All in all, I'm pretty happy with second quarter. That is it for me and my second quarter statistics for 2020. Thank you for being here and letting me talk about my progress and my data in a way that I find interesting. If there's ever something you're curious about related to my goals or my progress, please make sure you let me know, because I can probably have a lot of fun digging out data to answer your question for you. If you are still here, please make sure to drop a comment to let me know. Hit subscribe and tap that little bell so you know when I'm back. Keep plotting the path to your own dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye!